The market was collapsing. Every headline looked worse than the one before. Crash, panic, fear. Millions of investors watched years of savings disappear. Zeke Vance was one of them. For 10 years, he had done everything right. He saved. He invested. He stayed patient. Until patience started feeling like a luxury. Then his phone rang. His manager. "We're making cuts." "I'm sorry. Today's your last day." Just like that, his paycheck was gone. He thanked him, hung up, and stared at the screen. His portfolio was down more money than he'd earned in the previous 10 years. For the first time, those numbers weren't just numbers. They looked like mortgage payments, hospital bills, diapers, everything his family would soon need. That night, Emily found him sitting at the kitchen table. Their daughter's nursery was almost finished. The mortgage still had 22 years left. Most of their savings were invested. Not because they were reckless, because they believed they were planning for the future. She quietly asked, "Are we going to be okay?" Zeke looked at the screen, then answered honestly, "I don't know." Silence. Then Emily whispered, "What if it never comes back?" Neither of them had an answer. Zeke didn't sleep. He watched the market all night. 2 in the morning. Lower. 3. Lower again. 5. Even lower. By sunrise, he wasn't trying to predict the future anymore. He was trying to protect the one thing he thought he still had. The next morning, he logged in. His finger hovered over one button. Sell all. 3 seconds later, it was over. 10 years of discipline. Gone. Zeke closed his eyes and whispered, "At least, it can't hurt us anymore." For the first time in weeks, he felt relief. 7 days later, the market stopped falling. Over the months, it slowly recovered. The investments Zeke had sold kept climbing. Year after year. People would later call it one of the greatest buying opportunities of a generation. Zeke never joined those conversations because from that day on, he stopped believing he had lost his money. He believed one decision had cost him the life he was supposed to live. And for the next 10 years, he never questioned that belief. Life moved on. His daughter was born, healthy, beautiful. Emily found a new job. Zeke built a small consulting business. Slowly, they recovered. Not rich, not struggling, just stable. Every few months, the market made the news again. New record high, another historic rally. Investors celebrate. Zeke never opened the articles. He already knew what they would say. Sometimes late at night, he logged into his old investment account. Not to buy, not to sell, just to look. Every year, the number was bigger. Every year, he closed the laptop a little faster, as if closing it quickly could somehow stop wondering what his life might have been. Life kept rewarding him. New clients, a growing business. The mortgage grew smaller. His savings grew larger. Emma took her first steps, then her first day of school. Life kept moving. Zeke didn't. From the outside, it looked like he had recovered. Inside, he still measured every success against the future he believed he had lost. Whenever someone mentioned investing, he answered the same way. "I'm done." Not because he thought the market was dangerous, because he believed he was. Then one afternoon, while waiting for a coffee, someone called his name. "Zeke?" He turned. "Daniel." An old friend. The one person who had never sold. The one person who had kept buying while everyone else was running away. They shook hands, smiled, talked, like no time had passed. Then Daniel asked a question, so quietly, it almost sounded like he was asking himself, "Do you ever think about the life you thought you lost?" Daniel smiled. "You never answered. Do you ever think about the life you thought you lost?" Zeke looked down. "Sometimes," Daniel nodded. "So do I." They walked through the financial district, glass towers, luxury cars. People hurried from one meeting to the next. Daniel pointed towards a skyscraper. "My office," then toward another. "My investment firm." He smiled. "I used to dream about all of this." A black car pulled up. The driver stepped out. "Mr. Brooks, the board is waiting." Daniel glanced at his watch. "1 minute." The driver nodded, like he'd heard those words every day. Zeke smiled. "I guess holding on worked out." Daniel looked at the skyline. It did. A pause. And then it became its own job. His phone vibrated. Meeting reminder. Another. Then another. He silenced them without looking. You know, I always thought I'd work less after I made enough. A small smile. I just kept moving what enough meant. Silence. Zeke looked at him. You could stop. Daniel smiled. I know. Another pause. So could you. Zeke frowned. What do you mean? Daniel looked at him. You sold 10 years ago, but you never left that day. Silence. The driver stepped forward. Sir, they're waiting. Daniel nodded. He opened the car door, then stopped. Without turning around, he quietly said, The hardest thing isn't recovering your money. It's convincing yourself the story you've been telling isn't true. He got in. The door closed. The car disappeared into traffic. Zeke stood there, watching it disappear. For the first time in 10 years, he wasn't wondering what would have happened if he'd never sold. He was wondering what else he'd stopped seeing that same day. A week passed, but Daniel never left Zeke's mind, not because of what he said, because of what he made him question. One Saturday, Zeke was helping his daughter build a treehouse. She held up a crooked piece of wood. Is this right? He smiled. Not even close. She laughed. So fix it. He looked at her for a moment, then smiled. I can. That afternoon, he sat alone at the kitchen table, the same table where, 10 years earlier, he had pressed sell all. He opened his old investment account. For the first time, he ignored the balance. He looked at the date he'd spent 10 years trying to undo. Then he opened an old calendar. The same year, the same week, the same month. The first page made him stop. Emma was born, a tiny footprint pressed into the corner. Another page, first client, coffee stain, a hurried check mark. Another, family vacation. 3 days, handwritten beside it. No phone. He smiled. He didn't remember writing that. Another page. Emma's first birthday, a crayon heart. Another, first employee hired. Another, mortgage payment, stamped, paid. He kept turning the pages. Slowly. The market appeared once. His life appeared everywhere. For 10 years, he had replayed one decision, while hundreds of better days had quietly passed, without him ever noticing. He closed the calendar, then looked at the investment account. One last time. The number hadn't changed. The story had. The next morning, he called Daniel. I owe you a thank you. Daniel smiled. For what? A long silence. Then Zeke answered, I finally stopped reading the wrong story. Daniel smiled. So, what happens now? Zeke looked out the window. Emma was outside, waiting beside the unfinished treehouse. He smiled. She's waiting. He hung up. That night, Zeke sat alone at the same kitchen table where, 10 years earlier, he had pressed sell all, same house, same chair, different man. He opened his old investment account. The final transaction was still there. Sold. For 10 years, that word had felt like a verdict. Tonight, it felt like a bookmark. The place where he had stopped living. He closed the account forever. Not because the mistake had disappeared, because he finally had. Just then, his daughter walked in. Dad, you promised you'd teach me how to invest. He smiled. I remember. She climbed into the chair beside him, opened a blank notebook. What's the first rule? Zeke looked at the empty page for a long moment. He didn't write. Then he smiled and wrote, Never let one decision decide the rest of your life. She read it, then looked up. Did someone teach you that? Zeke smiled. It took me a while. A few months later, he invested again. Not because he knew what the market would do. Nobody does. He invested because he finally understood that the biggest risk had never been losing money. It had been losing the years that came after. The narrator spoke one last time. Zeke Vance spent 10 years trying to recover a future he believed he had lost. The truth was, his future had never left. He was the one who had. Markets recover. Money recovers. Confidence can recover too. Life doesn't wait.